and then we'll get this going.
I'll text you the link if you want to do dinner.
Floating bar.
Selling
bar.
tickets, so it's corned beef and cabbage.
We're good?
All good.
All right, everyone, I would like to call to order the Tuesday, February 28th School Committee Special Meeting Budget Workshop Meeting. Can everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And can we bow our heads and take a moment for reflection? Thank you. All right, we are off and running. This is our second budget committee workshop.
Bring it up.
Grab that here.
And as it was before, we want to continue to ensure the strongest educational outcomes for our students, families, and stakeholders while being fiscally responsible to our Little Compton taxpayers. And at this point, I will turn it over to our team. Lori, John, you did beautifully last week. If anyone on that side of the room would like to contribute, we would love to hear from you. And I'll let you guys take it away.
Okay, I sent to you. What's that?
The bridge version.
John McNamee said the abridged version, please.
I was like, no small talk over there. What's this? That's great.
John and I did get some good news last week during February break, and that is represented in the updated budget numbers. You'll notice that the ask goes from 2.6 to 2.32. And to be able to achieve that, given our contractually obligated salary increases and so forth, and rising costs of transportation and utilities is quite a feat. And I'd say I'm responsible for maybe 25% of all of this preparation. And this fine gentleman, we owe him, gosh, so much for what he does with his mathematical wizardry, and always putting students and the staff who serve in front and center. John, take it away.
So, generally with the budget, it's kind of a work in process during the period. Now, the state's not going to approve the revenue number until probably early June. Based on my discussions with people at RIDE, there may be some movement on that. We're not sure at this point in time. So what we factored in what the governor has proposed in his budget, which is the $361,154, which is a 20% reduction from last year. So we started in the hole a little bit there. And again, just to reiterate, we've added $100,000 that we believe that we'll be able to get from the Newport County region in assets that would be distributed that we're going to be using to fund the FY24 budget. Once the audit is completed for the FY22 year, the past year, which we know that there was a surplus, the collaborative will determine what our share of that fund balance is, and we'll make a distribution of that amount. We're thinking that number is going to be somewhere close to 40,000. We still have probably 30 or 35,000 in Medicaid. And then we also know that there's about a $250,000 liability that they have accrued for on their books for post-employment benefits that they won't need, obviously, when they're liquidating. So we should get close to 5% of that number back too. So
That 40,000 is separate from the 100,000. Is that what you're,
no, that would be included as part
so
of
you're
it.
breaking the 100,000 down?
Yeah. Quite frankly, it could be more than that at this point, because they've gone another whole year, and I think operations have been good, so there's going to be some additional fund balance in there too. So I think we're pretty good on the revenue side. We do have some potential upside with maybe some changes in our state aid, but I'm not overly optimistic at this point in time. On the expense side, we had, what this budget does now is it, just put that forward a couple to the expenses. There we go. So we were able to take down our total expenses by about 21,000. So we have a $20,000 savings on our healthcare and $1,000 on our dental. So that takes our overall increase in our expenses to 2.64%, which I think is pretty good. We do have, obviously, we have teacher contracts and non-certified contracts that are in that 2% range. So those big salary numbers are in there. But the good news was that we had budgeted a 6% increase for healthcare and 3% for dental, which is what the town had budgeted. What the town is going to do is they're going to leave, I think they're going to leave it at that number, but what they're, whatever the surplus is on those two items, they're going to put it into their OPEB and fund some of their OPEB. So on their side, they're probably going to leave it at the 6 and 3. So we're at 3%. We just got in the items from the trust. We got an email the other day, so we'll have a 3% increase in our premiums for health and a 0.9% increase on the dental. So we've got about a $20,000 savings on the healthcare and about $1,000 on dental. I mean, we could have left that in there if we wanted to, but at this point, I think whatever we could do to kind of bring the percentage that we're looking at from the town. So right now, we'd be looking from the town for 177,491, which is a 2.32% increase over the prior year. So considering all the issues that we had with the first year of the Portsmouth High School tuition, I think we're in pretty good shape. I think with those numbers, I don't think we're going to see any pushback from the budget board. I will tell you that the budget board is concerned with us accumulating a significant fund balance. So at this point, the audit hasn't been completed. It's supposed to be sent in today, but they were still working over on the town side today. But the draft is showing us at fund balance of 590,117. Now, if you recall at the last meeting, we did take out 303,000 and we transferred that over to the capital reserve fund. Out of that 590, we're only going to be taking 220, which was already in our fund balance. The other 79 was going to be a distribution of revenue from the Newport County that we're going to recognize as revenue in 23. So that money in 23 is going to go in and go out as a transfer. 220,000 is coming out of our accumulated surplus from 22. So that'll bring the 590 down to about 370. The budget board has always made a case that, we shouldn't have any more than $350,000. When I met with them in November, they brought this issue up, and I don't recall if the school committee ever committing to that number, but by transferring it, we're going to be down in that range anyway, so we can kind of talk around it to the budget board. And of course, we need that money to do the capital improvements that we're looking at. So I think overall, by pulling this out, then we know that the budget board will know what the town is going to be using. So I don't think we'll have anything in that budget at this point in time that'll be questioned. But that's the only thing would be kind of an excess fund balance. Now, this year we are projecting, and we'll go through this next week, and I probably have another little over $100,000 of surplus because of the tuition payments to Portsmouth were down because enrollment was down a little bit. So, but again, I think what we would probably earmark that is for the transfer to capital reserve and kind of keep the fund balance that we look at on the school unrestricted, somewhere between that 3 and 350.
Yeah, so basically they want that fund at, let's say 350, and then anything that exceeds that will continually pump into the cap reserve fund is what the.
Yeah, see, they don't have, because when at the financial town meeting, when they allocate that money to the schools, that is committed to the schools. So the town can't say, well, I'm going to take that back and use it for town
Makes sense.
expenses.
You don't want to just tie it up there. Makes sense.
But ultimately, they could say, well, we're going to cut back your appropriation amount. They have the ability, if enrollment goes down by over 5%, to be able to reduce that appropriation under state law by 5%. So they could say, well, we'll only fund you at 95% of the prior year. And then we'd have to make up that difference by using some of the money in the fund balance. But it certainly is not prudent. We have, all you need is 1 or 2 children that might go out of district with special needs that could cost you a couple $100,000. I mean, there's always some fluctuations in tuitions, maybe at the CTE program. So, I mean, there are some things, and of course, there's ongoing maintenance that we incur here on the building that sometimes is difficult to budget for. So I think it's not an unreasonable number to have, somewhere between that $300,000 and $400,000 of fund balance. But and again, you'll be voting on that, is to be able to take it out of the unrestricted and put it over into the capital reserve, knowing that we're going to be able to leverage that and get from 40 to 50% back from RIDE.
Correct.
And get some things done around here as well, too. So that's really all that changed at this point in time from the original. I don't know if there were any questions on the original budget. I mean, the salary numbers seem to be pretty tight. Again, we've got a placeholder in there for the Newport County Regional, which is based on what we incurred in the prior year minus the grants that we're getting, the IDEA grants. So that amount should be enough. There might even be a little bit of excess on that to cover whatever the expenses we're needing for the funding of that program in-house. So there could be a little bit of excess there for us as well, too. So
Okay.
I feel pretty good about the budget from an overall standpoint.
Looks good.
So, John, if I may, you've been diligent in terms of, since the rate of inflation has increased since 2020, you've been diligent on saying what we can do, how we can maneuver. This looks good. 24 looks like it's going to be good. What do you see 25, 26? What's like, where are we going to be in terms of like I'm trying to think what our teachers' contracts are good. They're locked up through, say again, it's
2 more years.
2 more years.
Yep.
Our deal with Portsmouth is
Well, that's, we're committed for 3 years
3 years, yeah, okay,
on the funding side, so.
okay.
And,
I'm just trying to see if we keep this rate, like, are there going to be any major surprises? It doesn't seem to, I mean, you've just been so forthright and ahead of this. I just want to know if there's anything that you envision down the road that's going to be a challenge that we're going to have to overcome, face together, that kind of thing.
but I think, some of the things that we were talking about in looking at, for example, with this building on the construction side of it, is moving, let's say, to eliminating the use of fossil fuel, trying to get heat pumps in here. So I think we need to take a hard look at putting together a plan that can identify some of these needs that we have here. And I know, although it's not on the agenda, the town did vote to look at installing solar on all the town buildings, including the school side. On the school side, we think that, I know we can get housing aid for that. So whatever is the cost of putting solar here in the schools, we'll be able to get probably close to 50% back from RIDE, with the town funding that portion of it. I don't think they've realized yet that we'll get that housing aid, but we'll be keeping that housing aid to help.
We'll let them tell you you can tell them the good news.
So the issue is that we just entered into this virtual net metering agreement. So under that agreement, we're invested in a green solar energy project in Warren, Rhode Island. That's going to generate a certain amount of kilowatt hours that's going to be allocated to the school and the rest of the town's buildings. So that could be somewhere between 70 to 80% of our usage. So that leaves us about 20,000 kilowatt hours exposed that we could use for solar, which is probably less than what the solar would produce. So we have to look at a number of things. One is we can offload some of the virtual net metering to the town's buildings so that we don't hang up the credits. But if we're going to be looking at eventually moving to elimination of fossil fuel and getting into electric heat pumps, we're going to have more demand. So we'll be in a position probably to offset any of the increased utility costs with the solar project that we have in. So now it's a matter of funding the electric, the heat pumps, and the HVAC in this building, because that will not only give us heat, but it would also give us conditioned air, which is something that we had planned in our 5-year program too. But that was a pretty expensive piece out of that program. So if we can do some things to maybe get that number down, what I'd like to do is work on trying to get some capital in there so that we can look at that project maybe in the next 2 or 3 years. But having the solar in now would put us in a good position, because now we'll have that being generated and at really no cost to.
And we can only do it on we're locked into that contract with the Warren.
I don't think you,
distribute.
I don't think you want to toy with that contract, because
We're in a lease agreement, whatever, deal with them. Okay.
because the issue with the virtual net metering is that we don't have the responsibility of maintaining the solar and everything else. I mean, that just is what it says, virtual. So they just put that credit right on our bill for those energy credits, and then we pay 65% of that to the developer. So there's an automatic 35% discount. So that, I think, is still a good program to have. But this one, I think, adds another dimension to what we want to do, and gives us a lot of options in the future for this building. So and the town is moving forward with this. There was a resident, Dr. Locke, I don't know if any of you know him, but he just was pushing forward with this thing. And, he had and the town council gave them the okay to go forward with it. And they put together a committee, which I sat on, but the fire chief, member of the town council was on there, a town administrator, the building inspector, and we evaluated the bids that went out. And there is a vendor that looks like they may select that would be able to do this on all the town buildings. So it probably is maybe 18 months away at this point in time. But I think it's something that will be great for the town, and I think certainly for the school department.
Go ahead. Does anyone else have any questions?
So I guess I had a few questions, but so when the budget committee comes back to you and says that they want that 350 mark, is that 350 in all reserve accounts, or is that
No, that's just in the general.
just in general, they specify that? So
I think we can speak to that in terms of the capital needs. I mean, they're just seeing what's happening up at the town side, and, you know, they had to go ahead and borrow to do that. In our case, we're not gonna have to borrow money to get what we need over here, so. I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. We're also helping them out with the parking lot, because we're gonna be able to get housing aid for that parking lot, which they never thought they were gonna be able to get. But we're gonna be able to do that by doing some things to get the care and control of that parking lot over to the school committee so that we can get housing aid for that. And then we'll lease it back to them for $1. So, you know, I think we've got enough of a relationship with the town that I don't think that's going to be an issue. There was one member that brought it up, and, you know, I think that if it comes up again, I'll be able to kind of address that.
at the end of the day, we're gonna have, how much is gonna be in our general for us to reserve?
Well, right now, with the audit report, we have 590,117.
Right, but,
220 of that was transferred out.
right,
So right now we'll have 370,000 of that fund back.
okay, and that's unrestricted.
That is unrestricted, correct? So what we'll have is that capital reserve fund will show up in what we call a special revenue fund for the schools. So it's not included in this, but it's obviously included in the financials, but it's shown as special revenue fund, which means that in this case, the school committee has designated those funds for a particular use. You can always unrestrict funds. You can always vote to take that capital and bring it back into the unrestricted. So, and that's disclosed in the financials as well, but it is something that we've targeted for capital reserves so that we can kind of use that money to get housing aid. And RIDE says that you should have a capital reserve fund in order for you to get that housing aid money, so.
The capital reserves is gonna have what left over? Like, what are we gonna have in the capital starting off on?
Oh, this should, well, we transferred 303,000, so we're gonna start with 303,000.
So that was it, there was nothing else in the,
No, when we did the 500,000 for the hardening of the entrance, we got enough money in there with the reimbursements to zero that out. So, and that money basically was funded from some surpluses that we had at the school side, so.
Yeah, keep looking for like school things that we can do here that can benefit the entire community.
Absolutely.
That's
Well, yeah, the
like
buildings,
the parking lot piece, those little things were reimbursed, and it's
Right.
not footing the, that.
yeah, I mean, it's certainly, with 50% housing aid, I mean, it's a no-brainer when you look at some of these things. But, you have to be in the loop.
I was to see if you can find some residential loopholes because that's amazing. Like, that's fantastic. It's a great incentivization. And then the fact that our buildings are so close, we could share, it's a benefit.
On the town side, just to give you a perspective, their fund balance is 3,585,000 unrestricted.
Mhm.
So it's a pretty sizable fund balance.
Did they get a letter to reduce?
No. They generally what the
It's good.
what the rating agencies, the bonding rating agencies look at is they look at about,
It's 10%, right?
well, 10 to 15%. They're, I think, close to 15%. Their revenue is 15 million. So they had a pretty good year. They had $584,000 that they brought to the to bottom line, excess of revenues over expenses.
Great.
And we were at 320,000.
So a little under $1 million between both sides.
Yeah, now if you look at, you start throwing in the ag trust and everything else, the excess of revenues over expenses on the town was over $3 million. Puts them at over $7.3 million fund balance. That includes the ag trust.
Right.
I don't think anybody knows what happens with that thing.
No.
So
Solvency, it's a beautiful thing.
it is.
Excellent.
I guess the one question on the you said the 65% of the money goes to the developer on the Warren project, correct? So you said there's a 35% credit.
No, the difference between the credit and the 65% is our discount, the 35%. It's an automatic, so
Right, so we're gonna get 35% off of our bill, not,
we're gonna get 100% off our bill for every energy kilowatt hour that they allocate to us.
Yeah.
And we're gonna pay 65% to the developer. That's the way
The contracts were.
so we're getting a discount of 35%.
yeah, so at the end of the day, it's 35% off our. I understand,
Yeah.
I understand what you're
Yeah,
doing,
right.
but it's 35% off our bill.
Right.
Our electric bill.
Absolutely, yep.
And how long is that lease that?
That's with no upfront dollars.
Right.
So we didn't have to buy any of that equipment. We didn't have to maintain it. That's a flat 35%. Every district in the state is doing that. I think we were one of the last ones to finally get into it.
So what's the difference between that program and this program? We would actually buy everything, and I understand there'd be rebates and.
We would own it.
Yeah,
There are rebates both at the federal and the state level. The state is limited to about 75,000 under their program. The feds, I think, is about 30%. So even after those, the net cost will get another 50% off from RIDE. So our upfront cost, our payback is probably going to be less than 2 or 3 years, more than likely. Yeah, so it's a good deal.
What's the state rebate?
The states are flat 75,000 up to a certain level. We're going to be at the high end, so that's the flat 75,000.
Federal government, that's consistent at that level as well.
Yeah, and that was with some of the laws that
And then RIDE, my God.
that infrastructure bill that went into place. So the timing seems to be good to make that move now. And again, the life expectancy of those systems, generally when you're doing the virtual net metering, they can be anywhere from 10 to 20 years. Now there's a maintenance cost with that, but it really wasn't that much. I think we might have been talking, some of them, they were free for the first 3 years and it was like $6,000 a year thereafter. So it wasn't too burdensome. But still a little work to go on this contract. But I think long term, I think it would be a good benefit for the school committee.
so I guess not to beat on this, but you said you've looked at this with other members as far as contractors that could do this, but as far as the production, how are you guys going after that as far as like, what are you looking to produce? Like what's here now or like more than like,
Can you produce? I don't think you can produce more. Like they're gonna take your 3-year. Or are we gonna be able to do what we're doing, like what Warren does, like Michael?
Each of the bidders proposed a project that would generate a certain amount of kilowatt hours.
right?
And that was based on the size of the roof and where the panels could go, types of panels that are being used. So we'll be going to whatever the max would be in that regard. But they've kind of factored all that stuff in their proposal. Now the town put it out for bid. There was an RFP that went out weeks ago. And I think they opened them at the last meeting. I think there would be a proposal at one of the next meetings to pursue one of the contractors and kind of look at their ability to complete the project and also look at the equipment that they're going to be using as well too.
I just look at it as, and since we're talking budgets and what have you, and the reason why I asked this is because will that system produce more than what we use now? A, and then B, if it does, you talk about, I know humidity's been an issue in the building. As far as, when you talk about electric heat pumps and what have you.
So we have future usage, but there was also an issue, and Dr. Locke brought this up, is that we may be in a position where we could take whatever we're generating and enter into a virtual net metering agreement with another not-for-profit in town to basically lay off some of any excess production that might be on that unit.
That's the key.
So
I wonder if they'll take into account that.
we won't lose any.
When's that next meeting, John?
What's that?
When's that next solar meeting? Or is it just going to be presented to the council?
It's going to go to the council now.
Okay, cool. Good deal.
But we've got it as a discussion item on next week's meeting, so I'll bring in a little bit more information for that.
Great.
I kind of just, I guess my point what I'm driving at is if we have excess funds, if you find that we have excess funds, should we look at allocating, doing sections of these electric heat pumps if that system can?
I mean, commit the, yeah. So what we could do in the event that we are generating excess credits that we sell, we then could commit that money to the capital reserve specifically for the HVA system here at the school. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah.
Well done, Michael.
Instead of just.
That would have to be a vote by the committee, obviously,
But they will let you, like, because it doesn't exist now, but they will let you for future usage. Because this was a hang up with the residential, it was a heartbreaker, because they take your 3 years. And then you go from there, you can't say, oh, well, I'm going to get a solar, electric car, and then I'm going to put a wing on the house, and then we're going to have, 3 more kids and more power. They're like, no, it's a 3-year running. But you're saying that if we do what Michael's asking, hey, we'd like to outfit X number of rooms or have X number of units, be able to say, well, this is the grid space, or this is the solar array that you would need to meet that need.
Well, no, there is a limit in terms that they'll buy it back, but there's a limit on that. So that's why we'll need to look at it and either lay off some of the virtual net metering credits that we're getting to the town, or be in a position to sell some of the credits that are being generated from the solar unit to some other not-for-profits in town.
Yeah, okay. So it'd be great to donate to
A
them.
lot of possibilities.
Yeah, it's kind of a complicated scenario, and every time you talk to them, there's something different that comes up. But I think in the long run, it's going to be a real positive for the town.
Awesome, John. Megan, Hannah, Sue, any questions, concerns, comments for Lori or John?
Sounds great. Thank you for your work, John.
Town appropriations.
Lori, John, while everybody's looking over the notes for one, do you guys have anything else to contribute? Anything else to share?
Yeah, just like this is very thoughtful, intentional.
So it does have to go to the clerk tomorrow, so we just have to get a letter over there with the copy of
Letter reading.
the handout that I gave you, so they can start to incorporate that into the town budget. And then what we'll have is a budget meeting
Yeah.
where they'll take various departments, and so we generally meet with them sometime in March.
Okay.
To go over it, and it's been generally pretty good meetings. I mean, we've
Very much so.
we're pretty transparent in everything that we're doing with them, and the chairman of the budget committee, George Growell, is always over at town hall, so we're always talking, so he has a comfort level with the numbers, and so I'm not anticipating any issues.
Excellent.
The letter is ready to go.
Well, members of the committee, if you guys are good, I'll open it up to public comment. And Jonathan, I see two participants. Is that?
That's my laptop and the board.
Live streams.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
People are watching, but
Okay,
Somebody might be watching, but
fair.
and we always invite them, if I may, when we send out the agenda, to send in questions and
Yeah, no, I see the email on there. That said, if there is no public input or future topics to add to agendas, I will consider a vote to approve the fiscal year 2023-2024 school budget that has been presented to us this evening.
I move to vote to approve the fiscal year 2023-2024 school budget.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we will do vote by roll call if that's okay, Carolyn?
Sure. Mr. Audie,
Aye.
Ms. Ayotte,
Aye.
aye. Mr. Rocha
aye.
and Mrs. Canane. Aye.
Beautiful. Thank you all.
that letter.
Yeah, print that letter. Do we all need to sign it?
So just the superintendent, it's from the
Okay,
superintendent
cool.
to the town clerk.
Excellent. I want to thank you again, John, Lori, Jack, Carolyn, Jonathan, Jennifer, who's not here, but you guys really do a great job of advocating for the school and being in the trenches every day. I know it's hard to be at these meetings late at night, take your time. But I got to tell you guys, we're really pleased with the direction this is going and the avenues that we're pursuing to be like we spoke about, improving the educational outcomes and being fiscally responsible to the taxpayer. And I think we've done a beautiful job of executing that, not only this evening, but in the past and leading up. So thank you for that. Other than that, I will consider a motion to adjourn.
So moved.